Strategic Wealth Strategies podcast with our host, Alan Porter. Alan, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. And I met a gentleman here the other day that has the same passion for doing what he's doing that I've got with me or for my own business with tragic things that happen to my family. And I'd like to introduce him. Seth, say your last name. I don't want to mispronounce it.
Yeah, no problem. It's Seth Kniep. I often will say Seth Kniep, Kniep in it real to make it easy to pronounce, but it's Kniep. It's an old ancient German word.
Okay. Well, Seth, this is Neil Haley. He used to be a professional wrestler, believe it or
Yes.
not. How tall are you, Neil? 6 foot?
6'10", 6'10", 286 pounds now. So,
My
yeah.
goodness. I did boxing for a short time, but not wrestling. I will not mess with you.
No, this is the stuff that Hulk Hogan, all that stuff. Thank goodness I got out early. Made it the right call to be an entrepreneur. Teacher first, then entrepreneur. So go figure to that point. But I was maybe thinking of a comeback into pro wrestling. I said, no, I want to live a lot longer because that's not going to work if I go back now. These guys are killing each other way more than even when I wrestled. And I'm like, and they're a lot smaller too, which maybe that would have been maybe saved me. But yeah. So, all right, Alan, am I going first question? You want me to do that?
I'll go with the first question.
Okay.
Now, Seth, you built your last business, from a single dime to $50 million valuation with 350 employees, then lost it all. What's the one moment you didn't see coming that changed everything?
COVID. So we were importing tens of thousands of products from overseas into the US, and then we were launching e-commerce stores for clients. And we had built up a team of 350 plus staff in order to provide the back end support for that. We had actually created our own internal software as well. And it was very deceptive because if you look at, for example, Amazon, the biggest e-commerce store in the world, if you look at their year over year revenue, in 2020, their year over year revenue almost doubled. And so everyone thought, oh my goodness, e-commerce is the way because everything is just exploding. And we had already been doing e-commerce for a while. But when we hit COVID, COVID actually helped it first because it accelerated it because people were not spending their money at in-person services like haircuts, for a barber or to get a massage or at a gym. They were spending it online. And so as a result, this created this massive influx of money into the online space and overseas manufacturers. Well, that turned out to punish this industry terribly. We literally had clients who lived near the port and they could look out their window and see these ships just sitting there at the ports on the West Coast, just waiting. And all that time waiting, we're burning cash. And so we reached a point where we had to file Chapter 7 and lost everything. And we're talking, we went like this and then just bam, completely lost everything. And by everything, I mean our wealth, the company, the assets, everything went into bankruptcy. And it was very jarring and one of the most difficult things I've ever been through.
Wow. So walk me through the moment you decided to turn your worst business loss into a company that protects other people from the same thing.
Yeah. And I don't have this like super cool story for this part. I wish I did, like the sun was setting and all of a sudden they got this idea and I knew like it was like that. So I did several things. So we continued to sell on Amazon and sell in e-commerce and build stores for people after that through our new LLC. We did that for a while. And then we as in myself and my son Josiah, who is helping me build these businesses, we also started a company that finds leads for clients. And I never felt like this is what we're supposed to do long term. And so we really were just kind of scrambling, trying different things to generate cash and to try to rebuild. And it was through me meeting Ron Palmeter, who is today my business partner. He's been in the space of helping people protect and grow their wealth for 3 decades. And when he heard my story and then matched that up with what I had been through, and I had already at that point been studying like crazy, what could I do? What could I have done better to protect assets? Like, I'll put it this way. If I had protected my assets correctly, and if I'd used an estate plan wisely, then I would have had enough funds to live for the rest of my life, provide for my family and 100 other families for the rest of their lives, no problem, without having to work another day in my life. Like that's how big the loss was. And I was so focused on growth. I didn't think about this. And it wasn't even in my mind. It's actually easier to lose money than it is to make money. And that I had heard people like Kevin O'Leary make that statement. And I thought, oh, he's just doing that for marketing because it sounds cool. Now I understand how true that is. So Ron and I decided to open a company called Enduring Legacy Mentors. And what's different about this company, apart from the fact that we provide estate planning for people in all 50 states, is we train the trustee, who is the number one most important person. Upon the trustee, that plan succeeds or falls. That's the person who manages your estate after you die. And then second, we teach them how to fund a trust, how to move my assets. You know, if this is my trust here in this cup, how do I move my assets into the trust while I'm alive? Because today, based on multiple resources, 80% of the people in the US who have a trust have not funded it. In other words, their house, their business, their bank accounts are sitting outside of the trust. So when they die, this trust here is just a worthless piece of paper. It's like having a safe that I got to save my valuables, my firearms in, but I never put it inside. So it does nothing when the thief shows up.
Well, I'll tell you, Seth, you really opened my eyes because I've got a lot of clients, and I'm going to be adding you as part of my team because not everybody can know everything. And that's what I tell people. I have a lot of two questions I ask them. I said, "When's the last time any of your advisors give you any proactive advice on saving taxes?" It's slim to never. And the other one is the other question I ask them is, you may have the greatest advisors in the world, but it's what they don't know that's going to end up costing you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, undue tax fees and lost opportunity costs.
Yeah.
But most people think that estate planning is for people that are ultra wealthy. What would you say to someone who thinks that way? That they don't need it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's true. Most people think, hey, you have to be very old and very wealthy to even consider getting a trust. Trust is like for those special people in the Rockefeller line, is how a lot of people consider. Here's the reality. Regardless of what state someone lives in, if you have any wealth, and that could be as simple as a house and a bank account and maybe own part of an LLC, for example, maybe shares in LLC, and you don't have a trust and you haven't moved your assets into the trust, when you pass, by law, the government will come in and they will take some of that wealth while deciding what to do with your assets. They decide, not you. And the lowest we've seen is 5% that they've taken. The most we've seen is 50%. So that wealth is just reduced that someone spent their entire life building.
You know, something else I've found out, attorneys, when they go into probate, are going to get 6 to 12% of that estate through legal fees.
Yep. It's a $17.2 billion industry as of today for 2026. That's how much probate lawyers and state governments will make in the US. And what's crazy about it, Alan, is this concept of probate goes all the way back. It's actually older than America. It goes all the way back to the 1600s when America was first being settled. And it was adopted from England. So this idea that the government steps in and decides how to distribute your stuff is ancient and incredibly outdated in light of the rise of the West in capitalism.
Okay. So you've trained entrepreneurs in 150 countries and consulted for brands like Amazon, BMW, Forever 21. You've seen builders at every level. Why do so many of them, regardless of how big they get, still ignore legacy, estate planning, and stewardship until it's too late?
Sadly, because people don't tend to think about what they could lose until they lose something. The vast majority of people who proactively will reach out to our company, it's because they had a mom or a dad or an uncle who went through probate and they either witnessed it or they were part of it. Because when probate happens, typically it lasts for years. Just for example, Howard Hughes, aviator, billionaire, filmmaker. So this is crazy, guys. When he died, he had no estate plan. He didn't have a trust. He didn't fund the trust. And we're talking about one of the richest people in the world for his day, right? He died a year before I was born. That's 1976. I was 33 years old before probate court finished for his assets.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It sounds
That
like
long. And so how much money went to the lawyers and the courts versus his family?
And I don't know the amount, but it was millions. And
Yeah.
the incentive there is even if someone is completely trying to be as honest as possible, the incentive is the longer this lasts, the more money, the more I get. And here's another crazy fact that most people don't know. When you die, if you don't have an estate plan and put your assets into your trust, the government has to notify anyone who could potentially be a beneficiary. That could be an ex, could be a stepchild, your children, grandchildren, could be nieces and nephews. And when they notify them, they don't just say, hey, so-and-so died, and now we're going to decide their estate plan. They will say, would you like to make a claim against this person's estate? When they make a claim, if the executor of the will or the trustee that's been appointed by the government to handle this rejects the claim, that person is then invited to sue. Well, what's the most important legal fees? Litigation, lawsuits in court. Who pays for that? The estate, the assets of the person who died. So it actually does three things. It extends the time period of how long it takes. It costs far more, and it creates an opportunity for incredible family division. In some families, they never recover because my brother just sued me. I can't stand him now. Why would I want to talk to him? And that's all because the grantor, the person who died, didn't set it up in advance to protect not just themselves, but their family from this kind of scenario.
Seth, what's the most dangerous lie the entrepreneur would tells people about money and wealth?
Yeah. And this one's very personal for me as well. It's that money is going to fulfill me. And I know that there's a desire to make money, and I think that desire is great. Like I believe in the Bible, and when God put Adam and Eve in the garden, there's a reason he said, go and cultivate. And I believe it's good to produce. And I've met some people of faith who are like, man, you shouldn't try to make money. That's evil. And I think that's crazy. Like it's in our incentive to do well in everything. You used to be a wrestler, Neil. You know, I did boxing for a short time. We want to do well. I didn't go into boxing just so I could, get beat up. Like I actually wanted to do well. So in the same way, I think it's a good thing. But money will never, ever, ever fulfill us. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of not even just about being rich, but more letting it be our identity. And I believe that that's the biggest lie. And there are some very skilled entrepreneurs today on YouTube who teach you how to make money. I don't see anything wrong with it. But I think the key issue is if that's someone's identity, then what happens if they lose the money? And I'll give you a personal example. When I lost everything in bankruptcy, one of the lawyers, and this lawyer, by the way, was not my lawyer. So he wasn't even supposed to do this. He called me and I said, why are you calling? He goes, I just wanted to see if you're okay. And I said, why are you asking me this? And he said, because I've seen people go through less and commit suicide. Not because they went from wealthy to broke, but because their identity was wrapped up in the success. And therefore, if success determines my level of peace, my sense of joy and happiness and purpose rises and falls on the wave of my performance. But I will share this, brothers. When I lost everything, that was just as good for my soul as when I built the company. It taught me a lot of stuff that I couldn't share today otherwise. And so I wouldn't, even though it hurt, and when I was in it, I hated it, I wouldn't replace it for anything because it helped to make me who I am today.
Very good, interesting. All right, so I'm enjoying this conversation, but I would never thought that that looking at wealth can cause those problems as well in so many aspects. You often said that 87% of American families will leave their children assets to be dragged through probate court by government and when they die. If the number is that staggering, why are so many people still doing nothing? And what does it actually cost a family when they wait?
Yeah, it's the big secret. State government who benefits from probate court and probate attorneys, like you had mentioned earlier, Alan, they benefit from probate court. So when people are ignorant, what happens? They don't move to action. That's the biggest one. And what's funny is a lot of people will say, well, I've always known I need to have an estate plan. It's like in the back of their mind, especially people who've built more wealth. They realize they need to protect it somehow. I need to be smart with it. But it's always something they want to put off because they don't understand everyone goes to probate court if they have wealth. That's the big lie. And so that's kept a secret, and there's incentive to keep it a secret. And people just, oh yeah, this is just the way it is. Well, we don't have to live like that. We can actually choose to say, no, I want a new path. And I would rather protect it and be smart today because I don't want the last thing my family remembers me for is me failing to set up an estate plan that would protect them and their families.
Well, you echo many, many things that I say. It's just like it's all about education. And, we listen, I teach people to think outside the box in conventional financial planning and show them the strategies the wealthy and the banking institutions have been using for years. And when it comes to cash value life insurance, that's where I excel in. And I can go on and on about this, but most people think I have a will, I'm good. What's the biggest myth about basic estate planning? And what does the government's default plan actually look like for families who never get around to it? And I'll give you one example. Joe Robbie, back in the 70s, he owned Joe Robbie Stadium and the Miami Dolphins. He had no estate plan, and his family had to sell everything. It was worth $400 million at one time just to pay the tax on the estate. The family got next to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think what you're referring to, the what's interesting is if to take this conversation on a different direction just for a moment, the lack of education in the public school system. I mean, I wasn't
Absolutely.
even taught, guys, I am 48 today. I was never taught how to do a budget. And I love my parents. They didn't teach me how to do a budget. They weren't taught how to do a budget. I wasn't taught that in school. No one taught me how to do a budget. Like that's some of the most basic beginning point of finance. I mean, Dave Ramsey would turn over if he was dead in his grave. If you realize, like, it's unbelievable how few people even know just to do a budget. I didn't really think about that till my 30s. Like, that's embarrassing to share, but it's crazy. Like, financial education is so critical. And what you're sharing with life insurance, and I mean, it's its own entire world. And when people know it, it empowers them to make wise decisions.
It totally does. And it's something that people don't understand. In a budget, in my private school, yes, we did work on budgets. So it just all depends. It's the curriculum.
You're
I
blessed.
went to Catholic schools. So there you go.
Yeah.
And the public schools, don't get me started on that whole
Yeah.
thing. All right. So what does it actually mean to leave a legacy? And why do so many people confuse it with just leaving money?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to be clear, money's part of that because if I'm being wise and I'm working hard and I'm building wealth, that is a good thing. I'm not anti making money, but it doesn't begin and end with money. So a good legacy is what people remember you for. So let's just say I was the wealthiest man in the world, as wealthy as Elon Musk, right? And I have 4 children. They're all adults now and about to be a grandfather in 3 months. And let's just say I left them with a ton of money. If that's what they remember me the most for and that's it, then I've failed. I have failed my kids because they need to know how to make money, how to manage money, and how to invest in people. It's like if you use the formula for accruing wealth and over time, as you see interest start to compound, the actual formula is fascinating to me. Let me give an example. So there's time and there's money, right? I can make $1 million. I can lose $1 million. I can make it back, but I can't get time back. Every second the clock is ticking, I can't get time back. And I have far less control over how long I live. I have influence on it, but not control. But with money, I have a lot of influence on how much money I make. So time is sort of like gold. It's sort of like crypto. It's sort of like water. It's a limited resource. So how do I grow my time, and especially since time is a big factor when it comes to interest compound growth? You have to have it over time, keep reinvesting, and eventually it just skyrockets. Well, that goes back to investing in people. I can't extend my time, but I can teach other people what I've learned, whether they're family members, volunteers, staff, spouse, whoever it is. Now I'm growing my time, and that time will bless me manyfold. I can do far more with 100 people than just by myself, but it also helps them and their future. So that's what I mean by legacy, is viewing time as actually a more precious commodity than wealth. If I understand time well, I can manage wealth much better because it's a limited resource.
Your next question. You recently became a grandfather. I remember when I became a grandfather and looked at that child, it changed my life.
Yeah.
But did that change how you think about legacy, or did it just confirm what you've already believed?
It more the second. It confirmed, but it definitely further emphasized it. And you know, thinking about, and I'm a grandfather. Like the baby's still in my daughter's womb. She hasn't had the baby yet, but knowing I'm about to have a grandchild has made me think this, man, if I could go back and start over as a father, I could do much better. Like there's so many things I wish I could tell my 21-year-old self when I had my first kid. And my wife and I have been married 27 years now. I wish I could teach myself some things that I just didn't know then. I didn't have anyone teaching me, investing in me, discipling me about money, life, parenting. Like I really had, and this is not like a victim statement. I'm responsible for my decisions, but I had to figure it out on my own. And so if I could go back and so for me, Alan, it's sort of like I get a second chance. I'm not going to raise the kid, obviously, but I can influence the kid. I can invest truth. I can encourage and help. I've heard of so many people who said their grandma or their grandfather absolutely changed their life. And I want to be that kind of granddad.
Okay. All right. So after everything you have lived through, what do you want most what do you want your life to prove now?
What do I want my life to prove now? That you can lose everything and rebuild, that there's always hope, and that when you are at the bottom of your barrel, let's say your spouse left you, let's say you lost your business, let's say you have cancer, as long as you're alive, there is hope.
Right.
And you can allow pain to transform you from the inside out and make you a stronger person than you ever could have imagined being had you not gone through the hell that you're going through now. That's what I would say.
No doubt. I think that's the key thing is bad things happen. You can get, there's a seed of benefit in any tough trial in your life. And we have to learn from all those.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we fall on our face. So Alan, I'm going to go get Seth's information where people can contact him, or they're going to go directly to Alan. Yes. So Alan, where can people, if they were interested in working with Seth, what can they do?
Well, call me up at 910-551-1046. You can go to my website and set up an appointment there at strategicwealthstrategies.com, or you can email me at strategicwealth, the number 0, at gmail.com. Remember, it's all about education. Not only education I can give you, but the education of my team. And Seth can be a part of my team. It's going to be a part of my team because I've learned so much here in the last couple of days just from him.
Well, fantastic. Thank you again, Seth. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. That was the Strategic Wealth Strategies podcast, guys. Take care.